You're listening to REIA Radio, the nationally trusted name in real estate investing. We dig deep to discover investors' why in real estate. If you want to skip all the BS and get in investors' heads, you're in the right spot. Be one of the thousands to check out REIARadio.com.
One thing that motivates me is I want to be the example. I want to be the example to when people are, they're hurting, I can be there to love on them. I can be the example to forgive someone that hurt me. I can be the example to be financially free. I can be the example to be a great husband, father, like all those things. Be a great example to say, hey, be vulnerable like Owen was today. Be the example, and when they're ready, let them come to you, but make sure it's a safe place, because when you try to help them so much and then they don't, you get this like frustration and you leave them with that frustrating feeling associated to you. And so when they are ready, they're like, oh, he was pissed off at me. He's not going to want to help me anymore.
This episode is brought to you by JM Real Estate Capital.
Hi, it's Rob, JM Real Estate Capital. We're the money guys that you need to know for all your real estate investments. Talk to us. We can do what your local bank can't or won't do. We don't have millions. We have trillions with a T to lend. 844-WE-CLOSE, or go online, jmrecapital.com. That's jmrecapital.com. JM Real Estate Capital, smart solutions for the real estate investor.
Welcome to REIA Radio, episode 187 with Joe Moffett. And then the crowd goes wild. There we go, Joe. He's in.
Joe, what personality types or just traits that you've noticed in your 35,000 coaching calls that you've done have been the easiest and hardest to implement change with?
So growing up into the coaching world, we like to use the DISC profile. Anyone that's not aware of the DISC profile, check it out. It's pretty simple, but it does speak to our personality types. But over the years, what I found is the driven, the high Ds, the high Is, the influencers, those are the ones that are more the extroverts. They're the ones that are actually taking a lot of action, where my SCs, my more introverts, they're the ones that they got to have a plan in place. They got to know every little detail. It's kind of like they have their foot on the brake a little bit, and it takes a little bit more for them to get going. It doesn't mean that they can't be successful or that they can't, accomplish their goals. It's just they just need certain criteria before they start taking action. So those are kind of probably the ones that take a little bit more time.
So when you saw my profile being like, it was like, I think it was a 98I. So were you like, okay, I know exactly where to go here?
Yeah, I thought, I was like, he's going to get after it. He's an action taker. And then when we jumped on the phone, I'm like, oh, we're screwed. No, I'm just playing. no, I knew what you were all about before I even met you. So we're good to go there.
Where do you fall in the DISC profile world?
I am a natural 99I. I am outgoing, gregarious. You could drop me in the middle of a city and I'll walk out with 5 or 6 new best friends by the end of the day. But when I get under pressure and they're stressed, we all adapt. We all have an adaptive, right? When we're under pressure. And so for me, I go high D, which is the driven, like ready, fire, aim type person. And I just get things done. It's like my military leadership comes out. And I'm like, let's go. So, yeah.
Do you think personality is formed over time based on environment, or do you think there is some inherent genetics involvement with that is unchangeable?
Great question. We all have an inherent personality profile, but I think throughout life, as we grow up, right, we're getting our social conditioning from our environment, people we spend time with, even our circumstances, some of us trauma. It starts to shape who we are. And I think that can change over time, especially like our adaptive. When we're under pressure, we can train ourselves to be able to adapt to pressure. We might not be as good as other people, right? It's like I was telling my son this morning about sports. I told him I wanted to be in the NBA when I was younger, but being 5'10", white, and a limited vertical, is kind of limited there. But I was like, some people have innate talent that you cannot change, right? Like some people are just blessed with it, some others aren't. But the one thing you can control is your work ethic. And so I think there's innate personality we have, but over time we can work on how we adapt to pressure, stress. And those are honestly the ones that I see that really can build the muscle of dealing with the stress and the pressure and the challenges of business and life. Those are the ones that I find are more successful in business. Doesn't mean other people can't be. It just means that they're able to control their success and their timeline faster.
I feel like I've had that conversation so many times with my own son because he's a natural athlete, does every single sports. In the first few years, he was just kicking butt. Nobody could touch him. He was the one who scored the most touchdowns, most baskets. He was the fastest. But he was depending on that natural ability versus, making it better and practicing. And so my conversation over and over with him was, I'm like, Carson, I'm like, dude, you got to get out there and you got to practice. You got to make those extra baskets. And he refuses to practice. Now, he's still young, but as I'm watching him not practice and not grow his passions, he's fallen back. And he went from being, the elite, on the top, if there was 5 basketball teams, he's on team 1. But this year he was on team 5 and he's not impressed with himself. And I'm like, hey, you know what? This is a life lesson right now because you are not developing your skills that are naturally there. And there's only so far that your natural skills can take you. But you're telling a 5th grader, 11-year-old this, and it's just not hitting home. And I think it will as he gets older. But as a parent, it's so hard to try to like build them up and help them understand that.
So I'll just speak to that because, what I found, even being a parent myself, is that when we're around our children, like we're too close to home. It's like even in the Bible, it says, Jesus wasn't a prophet in his hometown. And so with our kids, what I found is their peer group usually becomes their top influencers. And so if you have someone that he hangs out with that is a great someone that works hard at what they do and they have a great work ethic, you get him around that kid more often and you tell him why you want him to hang around with him, you'll start to see his work ethic increase in his sports. And I've just found that, environment is huge for everything. I'm sure you guys have, so that you've seen that in your life, right?
So I would say the same thing, not knowing this, but to be honest, the kids that are in his friend circle, his top 10 friends, in this case, basketball, all 10 of them are in that number 1 team and he's in the number 5 team and they all start off in the number 1 team together. So it's defeating him. And I'm using that, to try to like pump him up. And he used to be the number 1 shooter. He's not a great dribbler, but he's a great shooter. Now he's on the lowest team and this team hasn't won a game ever. And they're coming to the end of the season, but it's a 6-month season. And he's just defeated and he's negative. He's negative against coaches. He's negative against players. I'm like, it's all about practicing. You're not practicing, man. If you don't put the time in, you're not going to get what you want out of it. We're all parents here. And, as a parent, I'm hoping he grows from it because it's just really defeating. And actually going to those games really is kind of like a Debbie Downer for me.
Here's the thing too. It's like, and kids aren't taught this or kids don't know this. I never learned it growing up. Honestly, I didn't learn it till probably a handful of years ago. But if you can ask his peers, his friends that he hangs out with that are on the top team to call him up instead of calling him out, it does a big shift internally for people. So I always used to call people out. That was like one of my biggest downfalls. It's a military thing. It was some leadership stuff that when I got around one of the first leaders, we always used to call people out. It was just how I grew up. But then I started learning what gets better results is calling people up. And that's one thing with my boys that I love to do is, when they don't hit something, I'm not sitting there like saying, oh, it's okay. They know when we fail, what do? We got to get better. Right. And so I called them up. They like, Dad, I stink. I'm not good. I'm like, that's not who you are. We don't talk like that. That's not who you are. Right. You're having a moment and that's okay. But calling them up can, and especially by his peers calling them up, can be a huge shift. And that happens. And that's big for any parent listening or anyone that's in business that has employees or team members. Call them up. Don't call them out.
So his favorite thing is to say that all the refs work for the Chiefs.
Hey, I'm an Eagles fan, so I agree with him.
The whole time I was like, those are Chiefs refs, Dad.
Oh, that's funny. Now, Joe, in all of the coaching experience that you had, would you say that you spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs and small business owners, or do you speak more toward larger organizations and kind of like the group speaking type of a platform?
Great question. I believe there's a tension on each side, right? Like that me and my wife, she's also a coach too. And we play in between these two kind of barriers here. One is like, yes, over the last 7 years, I started my career off at Tony Robbins, worked for him for almost a decade, got all my training, finished top of my class there. And then I just started coaching people. I mean, to the tune where I was coaching like 300 calls in a month. That's a lot. Like 100 people was on my calendar a month and doing 300 calls. So you kind of get a lot of repetition, time in the saddle, we would say. So I started out coaching anyone. And our motto was coach anyone, anytime, anywhere, right? But then over time, I started shifting more towards business owners. And naturally, it was because I love business. I am an entrepreneur. I am an investor. And so we did a lot of coaching people on, especially in real estate. And I'll share a little bit of my story in this answer is after about, a couple of years of helping entrepreneurs, investors become financially free. And that's our whole mission now at my company, Master Life by Design. We help people create financial freedom. And I was coaching them, seeing people become financially free, traveling the world, on the beaches around the world. And the light bulb went off for me. And I was like, hey, maybe we should be doing that, right? And so we started investing ourselves. That's helped us create our financial freedom. But going back to your question, we do coach a lot of high-performing entrepreneurs, people that are looking to get to the next level. A lot of times, most entrepreneurs, they play solo. If you want to win, you got to play on a team, right? In the beginning, we wear so many hats, but I like to focus on the clients that are stressed out, they feel stuck, they feel challenged, because once we break them free from that, then we can start working on the good stuff. And that is, how do we go faster? Or how do we be able to call what I call life by design? How do we create that for you? Because it's not just about money. Most people think they want the money so they can have freedom. But that's not true, because you could have all the money in the world. How many people listening, people have a ton of money, but they're landlocked to their business and they're always thinking and working on it, right? So they want time freedom and location freedom. But once they get all that, that's what most people think they want. That's like the ultimate goal. I can retire, go anywhere in the world. But that's not necessarily true. And what I love helping people with is the last two freedoms, because there's 5, right? Financial, time, and location freedom. But the last 2 are the most pivotal. And that is mental and emotional freedom. Because if you have if you have money, you're on the beaches of Hawaii, you can do anything, buy anything, but you're mentally and emotionally distraught, worrying that it's all going to fall apart. Like, what quality of life is that? So anyway, I love to help entrepreneurs get there where they have all 5 of these types of freedom. So that's more of a day-to-day. My wife and I, we do work with companies. We actually just got hired last year. A $140 million company down in Miami hired us to work with their executive team. And they come in, we did a 2-day live event in West Palm Beach in September, which was awesome. Our training room was like literally on the beach. I was blown away. I was like, why are we even doing a training? We should be outside in the sun. But now we coach their executive team. So we play on both sides of the tension there, but primarily working with people that are looking to create financial freedom.
What role does your wife play in this business?
Badass. Yeah. She really is. For those of you that are listening, if you're married or newly married, sometimes when you're working with your partner, it can be like butting heads. And that's definitely been me and my wife. But over this last decade, we've kind of ironed out what roles she's excellent at and what roles I'm excellent at. And so as far as our business, she'll handle the logistics, the scheduling, the contracts, everything. If you guys have ever taken the Strength Finders assessment, Clifton Strength Finders, my number 1 trait is a woo, which is the outgoing, love talking to people, communicating with people. So that's really where I focus. If we're doing an event, I'll speak most of the time. Not that she can't. She's an excellent speaker, but I'm in the front. I'm making the phone calls if we need to lock things on. And so we kind of have our roles, but we equally, when it comes to coaching, when it comes to teaching, we equally deliver the same value and transformation.
I find that most of us marry our opposites, and they usually lift up what we fail in, right? That's why I feel like the good marriages work and the bad marriages don't work.
Joe, I want to give you the floor on this, but just anecdotally here, I know that in my sphere of, people that I surround myself with, I tend to vibe pretty well with people that have strengths and areas I don't. Not necessarily opposites, but I think, maybe you could say that, but I have like commonalities and some threads with that person whether it's a significant other or a friend. But yeah, typically it's like you don't want somebody exactly like you. I mean, those people are generally fun to have around if you're going out having beers or whatever. But yeah, if you want to develop,
that can be dangerous too.
It can. Yeah. What's your take on that, Joe? Actually, let's ask that. You've seen and talked to so many people over the years.
And what you're saying, I think there's a difference between skill and personality, right? And so we usually attract the opposite, which is great. But I think we could have similar skills where we can all succeed. Like, again, my wife is an excellent coach. I feel like I'm pretty okay, you know. I can let people know if that's true or not. But our personalities are completely opposite. Going back to disc, I'm a high I, she's a high D. Whatever I'm in, she's in the opposite, and vice versa. It's pretty wild. It's like we're never on the same page with that, but our skills are equal. And so I feel like we could deliver the same value, just do it packaged in a different way in our own space. But I do agree with you. Opposites attract, and your partner usually has your strengths, and that's why we marry them. It's not just because they're, you know, they got a pretty face and a tiny waist or anything like that. I hate the Jerry Maguire line, like they complete you, because you should come to a relationship 100% and they should come 100%. But you guys do become a perfect match as you attract them. That's my thought process, at least around it.
Well, I mean, in regards to my wife, I always beg her to, I love to get you involved in the business. One time I was so close during COVID to get her to come over. And she's CEO material written all over her face. But if she would lift me up in places I haven't been lifted before. And so I would love that opportunity. But as soon as COVID got over, she got back into teaching. I'm like, oh, babe, we're so close.
Well, you know what? Sometimes we sit there and we're like, yeah, we wish they were in our business and they help run it. But sometimes the biggest things, our wife, or if you're, you know, female listening, your husband is not on board, because I've seen that a lot too. Females are like go-getters. I got this one client, she's just a total go-getter. He's the complete opposite. He's like, let me do my job, play with the kids, take care of the house when I'm home. It's like, cool, it works. But sometimes you need them just to be your biggest cheerleader, someone on the sideline cheering you on, lifting you up when you're down. Because we all know entrepreneurship isn't always, you know, sunshine and rainbows. There's some very challenging seasons that we go through, and it's a fight. So having them on the sideline cheerleading you on, that's probably the most valuable thing we can have sometimes.
That's the first question I get every time is like, we're going on this double date, but are we going to talk real estate the whole time? Because if we are, I really don't want to go.
Joe, what are some common dysfunctions that you see with a lot of entrepreneurs or small business owners?
Oh, man, I could run through a list of them for you. They don't leverage. They don't delegate. They think that they're this one-stop shop, that they got all the answers, which from a macro perspective, limiting beliefs, we could say, that a lot of people hold onto. I see that as kind of the biggest indicator that, like, they don't want to let go of the control. And in fact, really, they're not a master in all those areas. And it's actually holding their business back from accelerating faster. That's probably the biggest one that I see a lot of the times. But then fear kicks in for all of us. You know, we all know the acronym of fear: false evidence appearing real. There's so many others, but the fear, this illusion of what could be, they put on the table and they choose that option. I always like to say there's infinite options on the table. Why are you picking the worst one? Right. And so, but we do that.
I've never heard it put that way, but that is very well said, actually.
It happens all the time. And so that's where I get to have some fun, kind of doing the Yoda Jedi mind tricks, right? Like just helping people see a different perspective around what they're looking at. And then there's the last one. So we got delegation or leverage. Most people don't do that. Fear. And then a lot of times the biggest thing is their insecurities. They don't always see what they're insecure about. Maybe it's childhood stuff. Maybe it's traumas in their life. But a lot of times people hold on to this old baggage of insecurities. And I always give this silly example, but when something challenging happens to us in life or business, sometimes what we do is we kind of sweep it under the rug. No big deal. But I always think of it as like, as if something happens, it's like you holding a pencil out in front of you. If I asked you to hold this for 5 seconds, 5 minutes, could you guys do that straight out in front of you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what if I asked you to hold this for 5 months, 5 years, or even 5 decades?
No. Yeah.
It's like it would become pretty heavy. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's what happens with so many people is they have these little moments that happen to them, like, oh, it's no big deal, I can carry it. But over 5 months, 5 years, and 5 decades, it weighs us down. And that's just one thing. And we usually have a whole suitcase. That's why we hear the old adage, right? Like, oh, they brought their baggage in from their previous relationship in. No one takes time to process those even small moments, let alone the big moments. And that's what slows them down. And so if you're wondering why you feel like your wheels are spinning, but you're not getting any traction, it's probably because of things that you have that are limiting you from your past that you just haven't processed and let go of, because it's so simple. Once you let go of it, it's like, that's when you feel lighter, and that's when you can run faster. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't want to work through that stuff, but it's really one of the biggest keys for their freedom.
I was sitting here thinking, so I was panicking when I was like 17, 18 years old because I had no idea what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I think it's an awful position you put, you know, juniors and seniors in high school in. Basically a gun to your head, and you're like, you need to decide right now what you want to do forever. And I'm like, I don't know what I want to do tomorrow. Like, this is so successful. And I just kind of looked at like, okay, I like sports. I was going on to play college baseball, and I'm like, I'm going to do sports administration because I'm super into it. That was like my default because I didn't know what else to do. And then I started taking classes, and I was like, you know, some of the classes you're like, this is awful. Like, you know, art appreciation and like calculus and like all the stuff you have to do to get a college degree. And I'm like, I will literally never, I don't know what a rhombus is. I did for a period of time, and I've never heard about it in 35 years since going to college. Like, what is a rhombus? Why do we need to learn this? So like learning practical skills. But I remember switching my major to psychology at one point after 2 years in college, because that was the only coursework I enjoyed. I was like super fascinated with just the whole aspect of psychology, how it relates to people and business and life in general. I started majoring in that. And then I was like, what the hell am I going to do with this degree? I don't really want to be a psychologist, even though this stuff's interesting. It's like, you know, you're watching a true crime show. It's
this
not like
explains so much about you right now.
You want to go out and be, you know what I mean? You know, like you watch true crime, you enjoy it, but it doesn't mean you want to go out and be Dexter. So, but I kind of lost my train of thought here, but I was kind of thinking about what you mentioned there. And it's almost like accumulated trauma over time, where your analogy with holding a pen out for a second, 5 seconds, but the longer you do it, the heavier it becomes, even though the weight hasn't changed. And it's like you're accumulating all of these things over a period of time that just weigh on you, and you don't even realize it, right? How do you unpack the baggage with somebody that is a business owner, an entrepreneur, and they're stuck? And they come to you and they're like, Joe, bro, help me. And you start digging into kind of their habits, like how they operate. How do you go about getting people to change their ways when they're really stuck?
Well, first, I'll say, if you believe you're stuck, then you're probably going to stay stuck, right? Like that belief system holds you back initially from creating any change. And I agree with you. Psychology is interesting. I went back and got my degree in organizational leadership, but then I went on to get my master's in performance psychology because I wanted to understand why people thought the way they thought, right? Like, why do people do what they do? I didn't want to go clinical or anything like that, but it just fascinated me. And that's what I love about people. But to answer your question, what happens is usually when a lot of these situations happen, we only see it from one angle. And so really going back and just unpacking it, like what was going on, and offering other options that are available to see what that's like, or even giving them the permission to put that down. A lot of times, a lot of this is rooted in forgiveness. Like, that's not sexy. No one's marketing forgiveness, right? Like, I'm not sitting there saying like, hey, let's go in and forgive everyone, and that's my marketing pitch, because no one would want that. It's not sexy. It doesn't do anything. But a lot of times we have to forgive ourselves. We have to forgive others that really hurt us. And forgiveness really, and I know I'm going in a different direction here, but forgiveness isn't for the other person. It's actually for you. Because as soon as you can forgive, you stop holding them guilty, right? I like to unpack, find out where was it. And a lot of times these things that we've been carrying for so long happened at a young age. And that's like, you know, my 6-year-old doesn't really have a global perspective on things. He only has his little like in the moment brain that's giving him kind of like putting things together and saying, well, this is why it happened. And we hold on to that thought process without challenging it, without questioning it. A lot of times what happens is, and this is for anyone listening here, we have all these thoughts. We have 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Most of them are recycled. That's why I believe coaching is so powerful, is because you get a different outside objective opinion to be able to show you where maybe your blind spots are, where you're challenged. But with that thought process, we don't ever challenge our thoughts. Like, we never question our thoughts. We just accept them as true, right? Like, oh, I'm not good enough. It's like, yeah, you're right. It's like, what? It's like, why aren't we questioning? Is that true? Is that really true? Is it 100% true? And we usually don't do that, because if we really question that, you'd find out the reality is it's not. But yet we live in this fast-paced society. We're high achievers. We're high performers listening. And so we just like, I don't have time for that. Let's just go forward. I'll plow through it. I'll grind through it. And that's what a lot of high performers do. And they eventually get there, but they feel heavy once they get there. It's like going to Hawaii, and it takes you like 3 days to get there because of delays and staying in airports. And you finally get there and you're like, oh gosh, I can't even enjoy it. It was such a long time to get here. So anyway, hope that answers that.
No, it does. I mean, to be honest with you, I could I could talk to you probably for 8 hours about just mindset and the psychology of people and business owners and how to get stuck and unstuck and why things happen.
We got at least another 45 minutes to an hour. So
yeah, we'll go Joe Rogan style here.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, you got an undergrad in organizational leadership, so you got done with your coursework. At what point did the military enter the picture for you? Did you go right after high school? Was it a little bit later? And why did you do that? Did you grow up in a military family? Like, maybe tell us the story there.
No, yeah, both my grandfathers were in. My grandfather on my dad's side was in the Navy. He actually helped on Normandy D-Day. He actually delivered people from the ship to the land. And so that was pretty crazy. My other grandfather was in the Army, but it wasn't really like promoted within our family. But I joined right out of high school. 9 days after graduation, I went to boot camp. This was 2003. I graduated. So obviously 9/11 happened, and that's what kind of triggered me to want to go into the military.
Yeah.
Family was against it. You know, they're like, no, especially the Marine Corps, they're first in line. But I didn't know at the time, but I already had coaching skills. I had great reframing skills. And I said to them, yeah, you're right. I might go in, be front line, but the Marines prepare you the best to live. So wouldn't you want me to have the best training? And they're like, oh, okay. So my mom eventually signed and let me go. So I traveled the world for 5 years, had a good and not so good time in it. I got to play in the sand in Iraq for 6 months, but I got out of the Marine Corps and I started going to school. And that's when I started taking the path of organizational leadership, because I wanted to be in business. I just didn't know which way to go. I actually got involved in Amway, network marketing. So if you guys, Amway.
Man, they just attack you at the mall.
We both have separate stories about this whole thing, but please go ahead.
Nice. Don't worry. I'm not trying to recruit anyone or get them to be customers anymore. I got friends if you want that, but I coach those people now. But anyway, it was great. That was a great time of my life because it did two things for me. Number one, it taught me how to lead people, gave me great leadership skills and communication skills. The second thing is it burnt me in the personal development. I don't know about you guys, but growing up, I was a lower middle class family. Parents were divorced, went and visited my dad every other weekend. But I never got books like Think and Grow Rich or Magic of Thinking Big, right? Like those books weren't in my life. But when I got involved in network marketing, it birthed this whole new world. And so I just started inhaling all this content. And eventually that's how I found Tony Robbins, and it changed my life. Just to back up, the reason why I joined the Marine Corps was at 9 days after graduation was because I felt like a financial burden to my mom. I know I wasn't. She would have done anything for me, but there's part of me is like, I knew I was a financial burden, let her just spend the money on her. And then the other part was like, I want to travel the world and make a name for myself. I got to do that. But after I got out of network marketing, I started going to school. And after I got my degree, I was like, I don't want to be a consultant. And I started getting involved with Tony Robbins. And so I was like, psychology, that was it. And then that's when I went and got my master's in performance psychology.
Okay, you mentioned Tony Robbins' names 4 times now. Did you ever get to hang out with him or get one-on-one coaching with him?
Not one-on-one coaching, but I did get to spend some time with Tony. Yeah.
Nice guy or what?
He definitely is.
There's not too many people we talk to that know Tony Robbins personally.
Well, it's not like I could call him, right? But from the times I interacted with him, he has a big heart. Like he loves people. He wants to help people, but he is a high D. So IDs, they can get angry, they can get pissed off. And so, Tony has that element where he knows what he wants and he's like, you better get it done.
That's
right?
my wife.
There you go.
ID and exactly that.
That's hilarious.
Okay, I'm angling for some free coaching here on myself, but we're going to call this a fictitious third party, nameless. We'll call him Schmoen. That was my nickname for a little while when I was young. Owen was not a popular name. I don't know if you know that. Before Party of Five came out, I was like one of one Owens in my entire life.
Tried being a Ted.
Yeah. Oh, dude, Ted's a fun name. What are you talking about?
Yeah, Teddy Bear, Teddy Roxman.
Tedward.
Yep. The nicknames just keep on going, buddy.
Okay, I would characterize myself as and I've taken the DISC profile. By the way, just to reiterate, for those of you who have not ever taken a DISC profile, do you know what the acronym stands for? I know this is a snap quiz or a pop quiz for you here, Joe, but what does DISC stand for?
Those are the 4 personality types: the driven, the influencer, the steady or stable, and the cautious.
Got it. Just anecdotally here, I'm a very high I, so I'm an ID, but I know some things about myself after like trying to be honest with who I really am over the years here. I know that I love starting things. I don't like operating them, and I get bored really easily. So it's fun for me to find deals in real estate. It's fun for me to start businesses. I could not care less about operating them and doing like the back end stuff and everything else. If all I had to do was just go out and come up with ideas and start businesses and talk to people, that's my jam. How often do you see that characteristic in your clients that are maybe small business owners, entrepreneurs? Is that very common? Or?
Yep. Very common for those high I's, because high I's, the influencers are great at starting things, but not the greatest at finishing. So when I'm coaching someone like myself or a high I, my wife kind of gets mad at me because she's a high D. D's are driven ones. They're the ones that like to get things across the finish line. So she kind of gets mad at me because I'm always leveraging things to her because I know I'm not going to finish it unless I have her do it for me, right? But we do work well as a team. That's where for someone like you want to partner with high Ds or hire high Ds for your business so that whatever you start that you're all excited about, it's like, yes, you're excited about it. You make those things happen. You want to be able to pass them off so that they can get to someone like a high D that can get across the finish line for you. And then you want to put someone like a high S, high C to keep that stable and keep that moving forward and have systems and processes and all the details ironed out and optimize it, all that good stuff. As a high influencer, I always like to say, we're like those people that have those squirrel moments all the time. We could be talking about, real estate and business. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh yeah, by the way, I have this rash on my calf, and it's like, what? It's a squirrel moment, right? We all do that. The high I's, we love the shiny things. We like to go play in them. So if that's you, and my number one rule in coaching is know thyself. That's my number one rule. And you do. And so knowing that is half the battle. And then I would just say, great, let's go find those implementers, the ones that can get it across the finish line for you so you can start playing your next project. If I said that to you, you're probably all giddy like a 17-year-old schoolgirl. But if I said, hey, you got to take this to completion, it's probably heavy on you, right?
I could not agree more with what you just said there. I used to be in recruiting for about 20 years, and we had different personality index. PI was a commonly used profiling tool when you were doing interviews for a particular type of position. So I worked for different Fortune 500 companies and did recruiting work, hired people, etc. And we use different tools like that. DISC was a new one. I was kind of out of the game and into real estate investing by the time that took off in popularity, but I did take it. And like I mentioned, I'm a very high I with a D component in there too, but I would much rather start things than finish them. Just ask my wife. And I really seem to be attracted to like not in that way, but I'm attracted to people in the business world that I can share ideas with, and we can talk about like, oh, here's how you started this, or here's the deal that I did, or whatever. And it was only until very, very recently where I realized that I need some D in my life. I know what I did there. Okay. I did that on purpose.
Vitamin D.
We made a hire recently for a business that I have, a hard money lending business. We've had him on the podcast before. His name's Luke Schulmeyer. Actually, he did take a disc profile, but I know this. I know he is an integrator for sure. Whether he identifies as one or not, he is the guy. I have needed somebody like that for various things in my life at any given time that can execute on ideas. And I don't have a lot of great ideas. I just have a lot of ideas. And some of them might end up being great. Some of them might end up being terrible. But having somebody to like be my idea catcher and being able to put that into practice has been like, it's been a holy shit moment for me. Having somebody like that around. So I cannot be more excited about realizing this. What kind of power does that give you as an entrepreneur if you have kind of that self-realization and you acknowledge who you really are, what you're good at, what you're not? Because ego really gets in the way of that for a long time.
Yeah, well, dealing with the ego is always fun, right? It's like my wife has this question when we call them speed bumps in our relationship, not fights, because whenever you say a word, our unconscious mind pictures something. Right. And I don't want to picture punching my wife. So like we don't have fights. We have speed bumps, right? It's like you have a little resistance, you get over it, and then you keep going, right? Smooth things out.
I did put speed bumps in my garage for my wife so she wouldn't hit my toolbox anymore, but we're not having the same type of thing, obviously.
Fun fact, Ted just showed me a video right before we started recording of him falling completely on his ass and his back from a little bit of a sheet of ice that we had yesterday, the day before.
2 days ago, yeah.
Yeah, and laying there like a turtle at the end of his driveway for a while.
I'm hurting right now.
Yeah.
Can we clip that in?
Yeah.
You know,
We'll
play that.
Dory, make this happen. Ted's going to upload it right now.
What we'll do is while you're talking, we'll let it play on my phone, and then you have to watch it on YouTube to see it.
Yeah, there you go. So let's see.
Okay, Ted's showing. Oh, there you go.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wait, he's trying to get up. Nope.
That's beautiful.
Oh, that hurt. Want to see it again? There he goes.
Okay.
Boom.
It's like the one
My shoulder hurts, my back hurts, my butt hurts. I'm feeling it.
So where were we? We were talking about the power of understanding that, right?
Yeah, the power of basically acknowledging who you are and what you do about it once you actually know.
Yeah, we were touching on the ego first, right? And bringing my wife into this, whenever we have a speed bump, she always asks herself the question, do I want to be right or do I want to be loved? Right. And so I kind of take that same thought process into business. And it's like, do you want to do all the work or do you want to make money? It's like, which one do you want? Like, you can get all the credit, but I don't know how much success you're going to have. You can. But if you were able to hire a team, again, this is a challenge for most entrepreneurs, especially in the beginning, when they wear all their hats because they're creating this baby of theirs and they don't want to let go. They're usually artists and not a business owner or a visionary, but that's a whole nother conversation. I will say, when you can learn to let go of your ego initially and just helping people see, like, it's costing you money by trying to do all this. Whereas if you hire someone that has a master level, they're an A+ player in your weakness where you're weak at, you're going to scale so much faster. I was at a mastermind event a couple of years ago. Jeff Hoffman, billionaire, Priceline, and invented the kiosk in the mall. And he said, as a CEO, his number one job is to look for A+ talent. He knows it's not him, right? No matter where he goes, he's like, I'd be at the supermarket, I'd be at the mall. He's like, I needed an A+ HR director. He's like, I went to an HR conference. And he's like, I heard the keynote speaker and I went after her and eventually hired.
Yeah, that's ballsy, man. Cutting everybody out and then just going straight to the top. I like that.
The old adage, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others, right? And go with a team. Build a team as fast as possible. I know in the beginning, a lot of time, it's not always economically right to do that. But as soon as you can, keep reinvesting back so you can bring A+ players. It changes the game. The ones that can fulfill your weakness and that's their strength, it's a game changer.
I have written down here, do you want to make money or do you want to get all the credit? I've never heard anyone put it that way, but I was internalizing what you said, and I totally resonate with what that means. Because I know the whole thing about you want to be proud of building a business, and I did this all myself, and I bootstrapped, and like I'm the, American success story. But that doesn't, like, the pride part of it really can get in the way of progress.
Doesn't
over
pay the
time.
bills.
Yeah, that's very powerful, actually, like what you just said there.
So what are you? Are you the credit guy or the money guy?
I have not always, that's not true. There's some things that I want credit for, but I'm not comfortable with public compliments generally. So I try to deflect that. I like to be the guy behind the guy. Like, I like helping you with the REIA and those kind of things. I like helping Colin with Omaha Real Estate Meetup, but I don't want to be the front man on that. I don't need to be on the stage. I want to be known a little bit.
You started your own meetup. You obviously wanted to have a little
taste
taste
like
of
12 people that show up.
It always has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So, Owen, let me ask you, why do you deflect credit?
I think it makes me uncomfortable to be publicly acknowledged for something, and I'm generally a sarcastic person.
As he talks on a podcast right now.
Well, I'm in my safe zone.
But why? Why do you deflect that?
That's a good question. It makes me feel uncomfortable to like accept a genuine compliment from somebody, because part of me thinks like you don't really know what you're saying. I'm not feeling the same thing about myself that you're giving me accolades for. I don't know how else to describe it. That's what I feel.
No, you're spot on. And I'm going to say this word, and we all have a feeling and a thought process, a picture around this. But remember, when we go back to it's deep down, and I'm not putting you down, please hear me. It does kind of link back somewhere to an insecurity. Yeah. Like, I'm not good enough to receive what you're saying, because here's what's really going on for everyone who listens. Owen's not the only one. I go through it. Ted goes through it. We all go through it. You go through it. Everyone that's giving you compliments lives outside of these 6 inches. You live inside here all day long, 24/7, 50 years of it. And so you know all your wrongs, you know all your failures, you know where you fall short, you know your patterns where you don't. You're like, man, I don't finish. I can start things, but I can never finish things. Ted over here, he can finish everything. Why can't I? And we start beating ourselves up. In fact, most of us would go to jail if we talk to our spouse the way that we talk to ourselves internally, right?
That's pretty insightful.
Great. I never heard that said.
But it's true. It's like we deflect because there's a part of us that doesn't want to receive, because we believe we're all these bad things over here. And the truth and the reality is, if you could let go of those things, you would be like, you know what, Ted, I appreciate you saying that. I really can own that. And it reinforces your greatness instead of internally tearing you down. And a lot of people, unfortunately, tear themselves so far down that they never allow their greatness to shine. And therefore, the things they want to accomplish and the people they want to help, they all suffer because of it.
Okay.
And that's why I like doing this.
I want to call out something here. I think you just unlocked a new level of insecurity with me, because it made me realize something.
The wife comment?
What?
The wife comment? Going to jail?
No.
Oh, that was the unlocking?
This is the part where you go, shh. Come on, man. I was just about ready to bare my soul. Ted needs to chime in. Okay, I'm going to go one level deeper on this with my own stuff. I feel like I am not living anywhere close to living up to my own potential in my head somewhere. And it's like, it's not a measurable thing. I don't have like, okay, now you're at 79%. But I've always walked around thinking like, internally, I think I can just about do almost anything if I really focused on it. And then I revert to my level of effort, and I'm continuously disappointed with myself. I feel like I'm nowhere close to all I could actually be if I really applied myself. And I have guilt about that. So I walk around feeling like I'm less than what I really could be, and I'm kind of a sham. And anybody that gives me a compliment, I really know the truth in that, thank you, but if you knew the real story, what was going on up here, you wouldn't be giving me that compliment. And that's why I have trouble accepting that.
First, I honor you for being real and open here, because everyone listening, I don't know how many of you would jump on a podcast with all these listeners and open up like that. I think that takes a lot of balls and guts. So thank you. You said something interesting. You get upset with yourself. And I don't think you get upset with yourself. I think you get upset with your effort. And to separate effort and identity are two key. Behavior and identity are two separate things. We usually kind of go like this because no one's teaching us that they're actually separate, right? So you get upset with your behavior, your effort, or more importantly, your habits. You have the habit of not following through or, taking things to the end or whatnot the way you want to. So you have this vision of where you want to go. And can you get there? Yes. But there's a part of you that is like, this is who I am. I am a great starter. And knowing that, you get to complement that with someone else's strength to get it across the finish line. Because again, life isn't meant to be individuals. Like if you think about it, anytime you've ever done anything great or achieved anything great, what do you go do? It's not an ego thing to go and say, I just did this or I just closed this huge deal. It's natural for us to want to share our success and celebrate with others because we were created to do life with each other and not individualized. And so you want to be able to build a team and to share and celebrate, but you say like, I feel guilty. And my question to you is, what would you have to believe in order to feel guilty?
Okay. What would I have to believe in order to feel guilty about myself in general?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said I feel guilty because I don't do these things.
I feel guilty for not putting forth every bit of effort I could in all aspects of everything. I feel like there's a gap. There's a varying level of gap and goal fulfillment in everything in my life. And I feel like when I look at it in total, I feel like a piece of shit because I'm like, yes, maybe I had a kick-ass week. Like, okay, case in point, this week, I feel like I really ate the frog with a whole bunch of things that I had been procrastinating on. I'm a serial procrastinator on stuff that I know is really important.
Stop saying that about yourself.
Okay, thank you. This is helpful. Just acknowledging what I would say is a recurring theme that comes up.
What is?
Yep. I tend to put off things that are really important but hard. And as a result of doing the thing, a profound change is going to happen in either my business or my life. So I kind of avoid that decision or that task. And once I do that thing and I really embrace whatever the result is going to be, I feel good about myself. So this week with work and business, I feel great about myself. Like I had a really kick-ass week this week. I did some tough things. I made some decisions that I've been putting off for a while. As a result, I'm walking around with my head held high. However, there has been at home times where I had let work spill over into normal family time. And I've been struggling with the fact that I haven't been fully present. And I didn't make this up, but there's a thing called like continuous partial attention, which is with devices and phones having like basically better than NASA capabilities now. It's so easy to get addicted to the dopamine rush of, just social media and everything else. And I feel like I have continuous partial attention with a lot of people that I'm talking to. And that is a huge disservice because I love talking to guys like you and people like you one-on-one and really drilling into what you're talking about. Like I feel like I'm sitting in the room with you right now. And I want that in all times. And when I'm not doing it, I feel guilty about not being there fully, if that makes sense.
Well, you touched on a lot of things. And we'll get a quick answer from you. What's the probability that that could be realistically true all the time, where we kind of like have this all the time?
Just to clarify, you mean with that feeling that I have of...
Yeah, like it sounds like you want to have this all the time.
Yeah.
But the reality is, the truth is, you can't, because there's different elements of life. There's a thing, we all heard it, the wheel of life, right? And for you, what I'm hearing, and this is common, everyone listening, if you guys are like, you're like, oh, and you're speaking my language, you're like, yes, you're saying everything about me. It's because high performers, we all think this way to a degree. But in the wheel of life, you have this expectation in every category of life, you got to be a 10 at all times.
Yeah.
And the probability of that happening is so unrealistic. We have to change our expectations. That's why when I work with my private clients, one of the things I like to do is I like to get them on and get a heart rate monitor and use the app Elite HRV. You can do it with the Oura Ring. But what it does is it tells you like 0 to 10, where's your body, right? Like 10, you're ready, full on go. 5, you're like, hey, you're not fully recovered. Because what that allows us to do is set the proper expectation for the day. But if you hold on this belief, I should be on at all times, I need to be at level 10 all the time. As soon as you don't, that is a recipe for you to say, failure, failure, failure. And like you beat yourself up because of it, because you do hold a high standard for yourself. And while that's great, it's just unhealthy. Tony Robbins has a line, if you trade your expectations for appreciation, the game would change. And I think for you, it's like The Gap and the Gain is a great book to really focus on, but it's like, where are you making progress? It's like you're asking yourself the question internally, am I at a 10? And I would invite you to ask a better question, which is, am I making progress towards that 10 this week? And if the answer is yes, you'll feel good, because Tony Robbins talks about how the formula for happiness or unhappiness is progress. If you're making progress in an area, you feel happy. If you're not making progress, you feel unhappy. I was speaking at a international mastermind event in Costa Rica. And I started my talk off last year with opening up saying, if you're not 100% clear, you're 100% unclear. And a lot of times what happens for people is we generalize and we don't stop and specify what's going to move the needle this week, right? Ted, I've asked you that, like, what's going to move the needle this week? So many people, this is what happens in life. We have all these things we need to do, right? And a lot of people, they touch a lot of different things throughout the week. And then at the end of the week, they're like, man, nothing's changed. What they're not doing is, like you said, Owen, is making a decision that I'm going to move something that week. They just touch a lot of things that give them this illusion that they're making progress. But at the end of the week, they're real with themselves and they're like, I haven't done anything.
Thought about that today. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this whole week was a waste. I did not accomplish the goals I want to accomplish. Honestly, I felt like a failure. And I woke up at 4 a.m. I'm like, what have I done that I'm proud of this week? I went to a couple conferences. I'm like, but I feel like I wasted the week.
Yeah. And so we got to give ourselves some grace. I talked about forgiveness. Forgive yourself for not being as productive as you want. But were you clear to say in the beginning of the week, here's the 3 things that are going to make me feel like I've made major progress moving forward? The 80-20 rule, Pareto's principle. We don't. We just say, oh, I'd like to do this. And then we touch on things. And then, oh, the wife calls, the kids are sick, flat tire, business, this happens, flood. And it's like, of course life's going to hit. We don't ever factor that in, but we all know it's a reality. So the other thing on why we feel this way is, and this isn't going to be a shameless plug, not just for me, but a shout out to my coaches. Most people don't have that accountability with a coach that's holding their feet to the fire. Ted, we had a coaching call on it, and I was like, we had our challenge. What are you going to do between now and our next call that's going to move the needle forward? And you're like, hey, I'm booking these events, these dates, right? I forget Joe's last name. He created the Spartan races, and he had it in his book. I don't have it. I actually went to Maui 2 weeks ago, and Cam Cartwright on Better Life Tribe podcast, I'm interviewing him next week, and I told him I'd give him a copy, and I realized that was my only copy. So, but in that book, Joe says that he references a study with 5 groups, one where they don't even set goals. To the last group, they set goals, they track them, they measure them, and then at the end of the week, they have weekly accountability. And clearly, the last group had a 92% success rate because they had that weekly accountability where they checked in with someone. They didn't just float and touch things. They knew they had someone to answer to if they didn't move something. And that's why after a decade of coaching, I still get coached. And that's why I think coaching is so powerful for everyone. And for those of you that are thinking like, well, coaching's only for those that are weak or don't have it together. Really? When Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant won all those championships, why did he have multiple coaches in his corner? Because here's the thing, they had a high standard for themselves. They didn't want to be good. They wanted to be great. They wanted to be the best ever. So they worked on the tiny things, the small things to optimize their game that made them a lead over everyone else. Not everyone does that. But a lot of you listening, you want that, but you don't have the coach to hold you accountable towards that. And you just beat yourself up and tear yourself down until you jump on a podcast with someone like me. You get filled back up. And then over time, you start beating yourself down again. And you're like, that's why I feel like coaching's so powerful. Yeah, so shameless plug for me.
I'm really glad you said that. And it made me think of, I don't know if it's actually a coined term, but the conference effect if you go to a conference and you get around a lot of like-minded people, you see an amazing speaker and they just speak to your soul, right? And you're like, this is amazing. I'm going to go back and dominate. Everything's changed. Like this is who I am now. And then you go back and you have, you've got life, you got kids stuff, you got coaching, you got like, your day-to-day work, bad stuff, good stuff happens, whatever. And then a little bit of time passes and the conference effect just kind of goes down and you're back to normal. It's kind of a cycle like that. But to your point, if you had somebody as a check-in, accountability, like, coaching type of a platform, it really checks and balances kind of like the highs and lows of all that to get to more of a higher level steady state. I don't know if that's a good way to put it or not. But.
No, you're right. And what happens is, to simplify it, what happens at conferences is your belief tank gets filled. Mm-hmm. And when you're alone and don't have reinforcements in your environment, it slowly starts to deflate. It's like a helium balloon, right? Yeah, it rises, but over time, if you just keep it tied to your staircase, it's just going to slowly drop. And that's what happens to us. And so that's why it's important to have those accountabilities that are like with a coach or someone in your corner that's going to fill you back up. And I want to be careful what I just said there. They're not filling you back up. They're asking the questions for you to unlock where you fill yourself up. A good coach is going to allow you to unlock what's already in you, and you fill yourself back up, not them fill you up.
Do you think there is a difference between a mentor and a coach?
Oh, absolutely. I think a mentor, and a lot with real estate, I use this example, but a mentor says, hey, here's what I've done to have success. Put your footprints in mine, and hopefully you have the same success, right? Like I look at like Brandon Turner as a great example of a mentor. He tells people like what he's done, and then he brings other mentors on the podcast, and same thing here. And then a coach is someone that says, okay, I don't care about your past. It plays a little bit of a role, but coaching is, where are you now? Where do you want to go? And how do we close the gap as quickly as possible? But we're going to ask questions to unlock the answers that are already within you. Because like you said earlier, Owen, when you made that decision, you felt like you were making progress. You were proud of yourself for that. Well, it's like going to the gym. If you hire a personal trainer and the trainer does the bench press for you, he gets the reward, not you. So I always encourage my clients that when we get started, it's like you're treating this like a personal training session. Yes, you paid your money. Yes, you're at the gym. I'm coaching you on what to do, but you're going to have to do the heavy lifting. And in coaching, the heavy lifting is when we ask those tough questions, you can't just sit there and say, I don't know. You have to make an effort to dig deep and really be like, what do I believe about myself? What do I believe about feeling guilty, right? It's like when you can really slow down and unplug from the game of life and just work on you for 30, 40 minutes, and then you have that breakthrough. When you plug back into the game of life, you're more powerful. Your tank is filled back up, and you're just that much more powerful to go out there and get things done that you want. So hopefully that answers it.
Man, if we could just clip like 30 seconds at a time of your sound bites here, like I think you could you could make a whole like movie out of this, like the inspirational movie by Joe Moffett. This is great.
Thank you.
So we do want to dive in, obviously, to your real estate investing extravaganza or experience that you've got here.
No, Joe, I warned you. I was like, hey, we will talk everything about you and what you do, but real estate will come up eventually.
we at least have to say the word real estate to feel good about ourselves here. I want to stay on the couch here for a minute because I have one more question for you. So I know a lot of people, Ted and I both do, and I'm sure you know thousands of them by now, who are really driven and goal-oriented, and they just knock down these goals, right? So maybe they want to get 100 doors. Maybe they want to get to 1,000 doors of real estate investing, or they want to do this level, this level, this level. And they continuously are achieving the things that they had as like a way off in the distance goal. And then before you know it, when does that stop, or does it? And how do you work with somebody like from a coaching perspective that is just never satisfied because they always are moving the goalposts?
Well, I look at what's the motive behind moving the goalpost, right? Is it to achieve some insecurity that they're trying to mask and cover up and put a Band-Aid over? Or is it because they truly believe like they have this God-given gift in business and marketplace and they were called to take territory and win in life because they want to be able to be a blessing to their family and those around them. I was just listening to, I'm not a huge fan of Dave Ramsey, but he does have some good principles, I think. And
Dave Ramsey honestly changed my early life.
Did he?
I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for going through that program. And
I'm more of a Grant Cardone leverage than a, pay everything off Dave Ramsey, but I still like Dave.
He establishes the fundamentals to get you going if you're just being stupid with financials.
Yeah.
And then once you figure out how to leverage credit in your benefit, that's a whole different game, and that comes with real estate investing.
Yep.
But Dave Ramsey helps the people who are just stupid with money.
I feel like he's a stepping stone from you going to a consumer to an investor.
Yeah.
I feel like he's the stepping stone, and then you start getting into more like, okay, yes, debt is a problem, and that tends to be the people that are attracted to that.
Yeah.
If you have bad habits, bad spending habits, consumer debt, and then once you kind of like accept that that's part of your personality or how your mind operates.
It's a mindset change.
Yeah. And once you get to that, then you can open it up to like, okay, the rich dad, poor dad, buying assets versus liabilities and that kind of thing. And then, then moving on.
Before I started buying real estate, because of Dave Ramsey, I was able to pay off my house and also have no credit debt, and all my cars paid off at one point.
Love that.
Do you notice how he said all my cars?
Yeah, I know. Big
I don't know many people that say all my cars like that. He's one of the very few one of my friends that say that.
Car guy.
So bringing Dave Ramsey back, I saw this video yesterday where it was a cup in the middle of like this bowl. And he said that for you to win, it's to fill your cup up so it overflows to other people, the bowl below. That's the goal.
Yeah.
And so good. I always go back, what's the motive behind growing? And if it's a healthy one versus an unhealthy one, we get to dive into why. And then it can change. The motive can change. And in fact, that's something that's big on my life. Why am I doing what am I doing? What's my motive behind me saying this, going on that podcast, building this out? Like, what's my motive? If it is one that's healthy, they keep moving the goalposts because they understand that they have this gift that they don't want to squander. And that they have this duty almost to win. That's why, I hear all these people, all these billionaires are just trying to make even more money. It's like, no, it's a passion for them. It's a skill set that they honed. It's something that they're really good at. Why wouldn't they keep doing it? Yeah, the benefit is money. And then they don't always question, like, well, what do they do with their money? Because a lot of the most successful people and wealthy people I know are the most generous people and the most kind-hearted. Right? Like, I don't know about you guys, but I've never had someone that's financially better than me ever turn around and put me down because of where I was financially. Like, they only encourage me.
I never thought about it that way until just now when you said that, where I would relate, we were making an analogy to sports earlier. So like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, you have people that are the 1% of the 1%. They're the top echelon of every athlete in the entire world. They're a generational talent. And you have some of them, and the book was called Limitless, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
It was written by Tim Grover, I think was his name. Don't quote me on that, but
yes, Tim Grover.
He was the coach for Kobe, I know for sure, and possibly Michael Jordan.
Yep. And a lot.
They were the best at their craft, and yet they still put in double the practice time preparation over everyone else. And they get idolized, right? You take John Q. Public out there, and they probably have a sports idol that they like put on this huge pedestal, and yet billionaires get vilified in the social media world for being greedy and like though that they're just the 1% and they're villainized out there for that reason. But what you're saying is, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm kind of like tying this together to is they discovered that they are excellent at business and they have embraced that to the tune of being excellent multiplied multiple times over, just like a sports hero would, or someone else in a different field like acting or something like that, where as long as it's not taking something away from somebody else and people can enjoy it, they'll celebrate the victory. But if somebody's successful in capitalism, it seems like that just shines a light on a lot of other people's insecurities around not having the same adeptness at making money as someone else.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that book was actually Relentless, and it's a phenomenal book by Tim Grover you alluded to. So anyone listening, check it out. With all those social media haters about billionaires, the one thing that they miss out is like they don't see that there's a risk in the beginning when they start out. They put up all the time, all the sleepless nights, all the money. They feed everyone else before themselves if there's anything left over. They don't.
And sometimes their family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so they just see the end result. They don't see the journey that they've went on. And, you know, it's funny because me and some of my peers, we talk about how, like, you know, if God showed you the end goal that he wanted you to, the life he wanted you to live, you'd be like, yeah, let's go. But if he showed you what you had to go through to get there, most people would be like, nope, I'm out. You know what I mean? And that's how I think it's like, we don't see that in entrepreneurship, the struggle. We see the highlight reel. But one thing I love to do on social media from time to time is I like to keep it real, because I don't want this false illusion that people can live up to this illusion when it's not true. I want them to know it is tough at times. It is challenging. My wife and I, we're in a hard season right now, regrouping our business. Why? Because it's just a season. It's not forever, but it's a season.
Mm-hmm.
So
I didn't come up with this idea, but it's like, people will root for you until you hit a point where you pass them. And this isn't everyone. I mean, your true friends want you to win, right?
Yeah.
Like no matter what. But in general, people that may be acquainted with you or like social media friends, but you really don't know them that well, they're going to root for you up until the point where they feel like you're above them in whatever capacity, regardless of how much work and effort and blood, sweat, and tears you put into it. And then there's maybe going to be some derogatory comments or some like little things that chip away at just acknowledging the hard work, right? Because they don't see all of that. They just, it's like the, you know, the old, what do they call those successories, like posters that they used to have up, like, this is the iceberg, and like what you don't see is underneath, and like it's all the hard work. But it's like the crabs in the bucket thing, you know, like, you get all the crabs in the bucket and one of them's crawling to the top, they'll get pulled down by the others.
Well, I'll say this, you know, if you don't have haters, you're doing something wrong. We all heard that before. But remember, the haters are only hating because they see you doing something that they can do themselves. So it's an insecurity that they're projecting out. That's all it is. Because if they were winning like you, they'd be celebrating. They'd be like, hey, let's go to Maui together. Let's go to the Bahamas together, travel the world. But they don't. They hate. It's a shame. And that's why I like doing what I'm doing, is because I want to help people think differently. You know, people say, you know, you're supposed to leave an inheritance to your children's children. I'm giving my kids their inheritance now. I'm teaching them how to think in life. Financially, spiritually, all areas. I'm teaching them how to think. And that's the best thing you can ever do. You can give someone a fish, or you could teach them how to fish. I'm teaching my kids at a young age how to fish. So my
biggest fear is haters. It's just something that I always make everybody happy, and I feel like I need to fix everybody around me to a detriment. And I feel like that is the scary thing for me is, you know, let's say that this podcast blows up to a whole, you know, bigger than what it is. And
when
we start getting the hate mail and the comments on social media, I won't be able to read them because I'll feel like I need to make everything right. I'll have to reach out to the person, have a conversation with that person, try to make them understand me, who I am, what the conversation was, because I don't. The negativeness will make it so I don't sleep.
Yeah. Well, it's because you have a big heart. You want to help people. But you're not going to be able to help people. But if you can create resources that you can point them to, like, hey, you know, go check out episode 187 on the podcast. That can help you shift the way you think. And I'm like, okay. You're like, okay.
Might be a murder number, but it's going to help you.
But again, you want to be able to point the resources and empower them to go after it, instead of you wasting your time and mental energy on trying to fix that one person, because it's not our job to fix people. It's our job just really to love on people. And again, if you realize the haters are just nothing more than insecurity symbols, when they hate, it's like an insecurity comment. You kind of have more compassion than rage, and you show up different.
Wow, that was a pretty good soundbite there. Especially in this world, right, where everybody's a keyboard warrior. Oh. That was a really good way to approach that. It gets exhausting reading through comments, and it's like so irresistible to do it, right?
Yeah.
So like you see somebody that's got like a post, and you're like, "Ooh, man, I bet people are going to be mean here," and you dive into it, and you're like, "Yep." And then before you know it, you're elbow deep in comments, and it's like, "What am I doing? Get out of here!"
So for me, it's not necessarily the comments right now in my life; it's the people that are in my life that I feel like are broken, or I feel like I need to try to fix. I'm reading a book, listening to a book right now, and it actually highlighted it. I think it was just this morning at the gym I was listening to it, And it's like, you can't fix everybody. It was actually a book that Jason Dries suggested, but in there, it talked about like, there's people in your life that you feel like that some people, like, and I'm one of them, feel like that I can fix and make better. But those people don't necessarily want to be fixed. I might think that they need to be fixed or want to be fixed. And then I start reflecting on my life over the years, and there's just like some people that are really, really broken.
Like all of your ex-girlfriends?
No, not them, but more the men friendships in my life. And I feel like I need to like step in and try to, and there's so many times I've helped them with homes, helped them with their relationships with their parents, with their girlfriends, with their kids, just gave them counseling on like, hey, you know what you're doing is not right, or you think you're this good person, but you're actually portraying yourself to be not good. And I feel like I keep on needing to put myself into it, and I'm wearing myself out with some of those people. And I have realized it was someone where I've had to just like cut the life off. Like, hey, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to reach out to you. I'm not going to check on you anymore. I can't handle it.
Yeah. Well, you got to have healthy boundaries for yourself. Ted, it's like when we first started our coaching, I asked you, do I have permission to coach you? A lot of times we should just ask them, do I have permission to help you? Do you want it? Do you even want help? Because sometimes we just kind of push on them because they're not living up to our standards or doing life the way we think. And yeah, there's an element of being a brother and being there and helping them. But if you lead them to water and they don't drink consistently, you're just wasting your time that you could be spending with your family or your business or on doing another interview to help people. When they're ready, they'll come around and they'll ask you. One of the biggest things that motivates me is, and I'm speaking kind of going back to you, Owen, like you have this expectation of being a 10 all the way around, which is a great aim, but it's not a great reality day to day. One thing that motivates me is I want to be the example. I want to be the example to when people are, they're hurting, I can be there to love on them. I can be the example to forgive someone that hurt me. I can be the example to be financially free. I can be the example to be a great husband, father, like all those things. Be a great example to say, hey, be vulnerable like Owen was today.
Owen doesn't normally get vulnerable, just so you know. Usually, like holds it close.
Well, he did a great job. So, be the example, and when they're ready, let them come to you. But make sure it's a safe place, because when you try to help them so much, and then they don't, you get this like frustration, and you leave them with that frustrating feeling associated to you. And so when they are ready, they're like, oh, he was pissed off at me. He's not going to want to help me anymore. Versus if you're like, man, look, I love you so much, bro, but right now you're just not in the season where you're taking any of that advice. I want you to know when you're ready, come back to me. I'm here. I love you, dude. I'll be here for you. Let's rock when you're ready. But till then, I got to go do my thing and work with the people who are ready to, to move forward.
It's kind of like fishing with a lure versus dynamite, right? People don't necessarily want you to help them. They're not ready yet. So you're saying kind of like give them a indication that you're open to helping and examples of what the progress could look like, but you don't have to necessarily like waterboard them with like helpfulness, right? Because people are going to absorb that until they're fully ready for it. So it's kind of like, if you want to talk about this, we can do it at any time when you're ready. I'm not going to be the one that's going to pull your hair and drag you down the hallway to the door of acknowledgement.
Yep.
Right?
You got it.
Yeah.
And look, it's like, remember when we were teenagers, we thought we knew everything. And then you realize like mom and dad, they were right. And you come back to them. Your parents knew one day they would come back and be like, Dad, you were right, And so I look at it like that.
I'm still waiting for my teenagers to do that. I think the right age for that is 25.
Yeah. It's right around there.
That's right around where you're like, I'm thinking back to all those things that my parents told me, and I think there was something there.
Yep.
Let's revisit.
In the old Indian culture, the oldest person was the wisest person for a reason.
Yep.
So maybe we need to share this with our kids and make them listen to this one.
There you go.
So, Joe, before we move on to talking about what your real estate portfolio looks like, one thing I want to conclude with on this is somebody that maybe thinks that they need a coach, maybe thinks that they want to coach, somebody like myself that hasn't had a coach for 20 years until I signed on with you. What advice would you give them to prepare to working with a coach or picking the right coach to work with?
Great question.
It is a great question. And I don't know if there's any preparation except for a willingness to be vulnerable and coachable. If you're showing up like ready to play life at a higher level, to work through the junk, to let go of the crap you've been carrying, I think just your openness and willingness is the greatest first step you can take. Yes, you're going to invest money. Yes, you're going to invest time. Yes, you're going to invest in doing your work and doing the action steps. But that's part of the game of life anyway in business. So as long as you're open and willing to be coachable and not coming with an ego, knowing that you know everything and being open to a different perspective. And again, those different perspectives, I always say, try them on. If it doesn't fit, hang it back up. Right? I think those two qualities are kind of the biggest ones that I see. And if you come in hungry, that's the cherry on top. Like someone that's ready to get after, regardless of where they are, that's the ultimate. That's where we have a lot of fun.
2 days ago, I attended an all-day conference, and I went to one breakout session. It was on being coached. And one person played for the Giants for 3 years, played for Kansas City for 3 years, and also was a high school and college coach. And then you have 3 other real estate investors, a couple of them owned real estate companies here in town. The whole theme was everybody had their own business coach already. And they're all doing the Buffini. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I think 3 of them were doing Buffini programs. And they're like, hey, we like to look for somebody like my coach provides the CRM, with the coaching. My coach provides us with, the everybody's talking about the extras that it was provided. And I don't look at the extras. I don't
Who gives a shit about any of that?
Yeah, I mean that was what the conversation was. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't care about that. Like I'm already a business owner. I got my newsletter program. I got my CRM systems. I just want somebody raw to tell me what the hell I'm screwing up on and how I can make myself a better person. Like, what is it that you guys offer, in your company? And what advice do you generally give with somebody, when they're starting out with you?
Well, great question. And Tony Robbins has a great line, I think, is we've all heard, but success is 20% strategy and 80% psychology. Look, you could have the best pickup line in the world. And if you go up to that beautiful girl and you're like, hi, you're pretty. You wouldn't want to go out with me and give me your number.
Or beautiful man.
Yeah. You're like, the probability of you getting that result that you want, her number, it's not going to happen. But if you have the worst pickup line, the worst strategy, but you have the right psychology, and you walk up with confidence and you're like, hey, I think you're gorgeous. I'd love to get to know you sometime. Can I get your number? The probability is high you're going to get that answer. Why? It's because there's a confidence within you. There's a psychological thought process you have going up into that, regardless if you have the best pickup line / strategy or not. And I think a lot of times people fall short thinking that way. They think it's always the strategy. We have zero problem finding the strategy on how to be in shape. It's everywhere. You walk down the street, you're seeing promotions to eat right, gyms everywhere, yet we're the most obese country ever. Why? It's not a strategy problem. We got that. It's a psychology problem, the way we think about it. And so if I can help people start seeing things differently, helping them to get 100% clear, right? I was in the Marine Corps. I looked down a scope, and if it was blurry, the probability of me hitting that target is 0. But if it's crystal clear, then the probability of hitting it is massively high. And so that's why I said earlier, if you're not 100% clear, you're 100% unclear. So I love to start out getting clarity, like, where do you really want to go? Most people, they have all these great goals, but then I'm like, I ask the next question, which is the most important question, which is like, okay, well, what are the habits to get there on a daily and weekly basis? And they don't have them. So it's really just a wish of where they want to go, but they don't have the habits, and the habits are the biggest thing. And so I like to help people get clear, identify those habits, and then the roadblocks in their mind that's holding them back. Well, we all had those buddies. They see the beautiful girl. They're like, oh, I'd love to, connect with her. And you're like, well, why don't you go talk to her? Oh, no, I can. And insecurity right there. There's something in them. Right. So when we can root those out, we can help people release that. I find that they accelerate, and it's like, what more do you need? Like, I can give you a great CRM. I can give you a great goal setting PDF if you want, but none of that matters unless you're taking aligned action. And I see a lot of people, they're, Tony Robbins says it best. They run east looking for a sunset. And so it hurts my heart sometimes to see that people rely so heavy on the strategy or what they get versus who they're going to become and how they're going to feel after we're done coaching.
Oh, such good stuff. One more psychology related question. Do you ever feel like a fraud?
Oh, yeah, we all do. We all have imposter syndrome. I had a guy I was coaching. He's big on social media, had like 1 million+ followers, and he wanted to teach how to grow. And he's like, I felt like an imposter. I felt like a fraud. And I told him, I was like, you're never going to feel like you're that person until you actually do it. Like, you have to do it. So stop thinking you're this end result. Start thinking you're this person who's making progress towards that end result. And that's when things will start to feel lighter for you and you'll get better results. People feel your fakeness. You can tell when you're at a networking event if someone's genuinely interested in getting to know you or if they're trying to get something from you, and you feel it.
I think I mentioned this numerous times, but when I was taking over the local meetup group, the REIA group, it was Owen and Colin Schwartz and Brad Bader and a couple guys that I talked to. And I'm like, here are the guys I talk to and look up to. And here I am going to take over the local REIA group or the local meetup group and get in front of these people, even though I wasn't going to present myself because that's not who I am. But I'm going to, I was going to bring people up there to talk. But in my mind, I was like, I was putting myself up, up on display. And I was like, I don't know if I'm the qualified person to be the person standing in front of you guys. These guys called me out and they're like, you just get your ass up there and do what you do. And so, nervous as it was, they were the ones that pushed me up there and to say, don't diminish what you are, exemplify what you work good on, which is bringing people together, networking, creating events. It doesn't matter that you don't have this huge real estate portfolio. It just matters what you can create and create a community.
Yep.
And that's what really mattered to me.
That's huge.
But, when I listened to Joe talk there, one thing I took away was that Joe was definitely a sniper.
No.
I did notice that too. Like, he did talk.
I wasn't a sniper, but I've coached a Marine Corps sniper. So great guy.
All right. We'd be remiss. We're a long way into the podcast here, but this is such good stuff. I don't care if we talk about real estate the rest of the way because this is very helpful, but I feel like we do need to mention
I did prep him this on it. I go, Joe, we'll have a whole conversation and ask you what your real estate portfolio is at the very end.
So when did real estate even become a thing? And by the way, we do need to mention your proximity to Jason Dries and Brandon Turner and that world, right?
Yeah. And AJ Osborne.
Yeah. And so these are people who are Bigger Pockets fans, and even those that aren't, but have gravitated toward their content on social media, podcasts, all the platforms. And we've been fortunate enough to have a few of them on our podcast, which has been great. But what say you about that? Like, was it any of them or any of that process that got you illuminated on real estate investing?
No, when I left Tony Robbins and went on my own with my wife and our company, we just started naturally getting real estate investors. And like I said earlier, it's just after a while helping people become financially free through real estate specifically, because we had like the Tony Robbins Wealth Mastery, learn to put your money away in stocks and everything. But I started coaching people in real estate and I'm watching them create cash flow and watching it grow and letting them quit their jobs. And so it hit me one day. I was like, I need to be doing real estate too. And it was just a random thought. And look, here's the thing. My wife and I, when we first got together, I started my coaching journey. She was a mobile notary. She lived in the Bay Area and I was down in San Diego going to grad school. And I said, if this is going to work, you need to come down here because I can't go up there. I got grad school. So she started her mobile notary business all over from scratch. She crushed it. However, we started asking this question because questions direct focus, right? And the decisions you make determine the destiny that you're going to live out. And so we started asking the question, how can we make money anywhere in the world? And so eventually it was her becoming a coach. Years later, especially around this time, I realized we were asking the wrong question. And the question was, how can we make an abundance of passive income anywhere in the world? And so that's when the light bulb went off and we started investing or getting into the game. So kind of what that looks like for us now, we have some, we'll just say LP positions. I'm not in any syndications, but I am a partner in a self-storage deal out east. We do have an Airbnb about 2 hours from us, actually going up there tomorrow, that we have up in the mountains. That's more seasonal. We invested in a flipping company that was starting out. It's more of a 10-year play. So it's not, we're going to get going right now. We do have land that we bought. We're either going to flip it or develop it, but I think we're going to flip it because I think we're going to get a 10x return on our money. So it just makes sense. And then we are right now, we started last year. We started off doing co-living. Are you guys aware of co-living? Okay. Well,
is this like swinging?
So I would say that again.
Is this like swinging?
That's a good response,
Just
Joe.
clarify.
Joe's like, did he really say that? I don't want to respond until I clarify.
Yeah, let me get clarity first.
I couldn't. I'm sorry. I'm really
That's
immature.
great.
I should have brought that up on my vulnerable moments.
Oh, co-living's fun, man. I'll tell you.
The leash is only so long. I'm so sorry.
He's great. He's transforming. We love it. But all this time, my wife was kind of passively on board with it all. But I was like, how can I get her on board? And I interviewed a buddy in one of my masterminds that's a master at co-living, crushing it, 50, 60 grand a month. Maybe you guys should have him on the show. She saw that interview and she's like, I want to do that. And that lit her up. So we went full head of steam. We got this 5-bedroom, 2-bath house last year, rehabbed the entire thing, turned it into an 8-bedroom, 3-bath house. And we rent out each room. Now, there's systems or processes. They're for young professional, not college students, not party animals. And right now, after doing that, we're cash flowing just on that one property, $3,500 a month. So when people are sitting there listening to like a Bigger Pockets, oh, I got to get $100 a door, I'm like, that doesn't work for me. Even $1,000 a door, I'm kind of like, I don't know. Like I'm looking at $2,000 to $2,500 to $3,000. So we love that model. We're looking to amplify that. My wife's doing some cold calling for us right now. We actually got a lead yesterday that could, if we flipped the property, we could probably make like $200K on. So we're excited about it. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but we're excited about growing more of the co-living and then getting more in the commercial space. So we kind of dabbled in everything. And I think it's because I've coached so many successful people in so many different areas. I'm not afraid to take that step because I have resources to support me. Just like everyone listening, you have their meetup group and this podcast to support you. I have those support casting for me to say, hey, did I underwrite this right? Does this make sense? Am I on point here? Is this, the comp's good? So I just have that. So we're excited about growing that and rocking from there.
Just wait till you start podcasting, and then you get to interview, hundreds of people. And then you'll find that like, oh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to do that. It's just like the carrot is dangled in front of you over and over again.
Yeah.
You don't need to say the carrot was dangled in front of you when he's talking co-living, Ted. Come on, grow up. Sorry about him.
No.
Sorry about me.
Sorry.
Yes, we have another segment that we're going to jump into now. Owen Dasher, you inappropriate gentleman. We call it the failing forward.
Wow. No, we call it the
failing forward.
This Failing Forward is brought to you by PropStream.
PropStream is one of the most trusted real estate data software solutions. PropStream benefits all real estate professionals. You can find properties and contact homeowners on the go with PropStream's mobile app. We offer free academy courses tailored to real estate investors and agents. Take advantage of our live webinar demos to learn the software and scale your real estate business. Visit www.propstream.com and sign up for your 7-day free trial to get more leads and grow your business.
He's so dramatic. So we have a section here, as Ted alluded to in a weird way, that we cover.
Not as weird as his.
Cover something that happened along your business, typically, or
your
life.
journey.
Okay, journey. We'll go journey.
Yes, we'll go journey.
Where stuff didn't go according to plan. You learned something along the way.
It failed.
And Ted interrupted you the entire time.
I mean, it kind of sucked. But you wouldn't take it back.
Oh, wow.
This is the part of the podcast where the old fashions have officially kicked in for Ted.
I'll talk about my business journey versus a specific like real estate. And I will say, looking back, it wasn't a failure, but at the time it was. So for me, it was getting in network marketing. I told you that it taught me great skill sets and birthed me in personal development. But I spent 5 years in that industry thinking that was my ticket to becoming financially free and wealthy and rich and all that good stuff. And I bought into the vision and the dream. And I have friends that do live that because of that industry. However, for me, it was a failure of 5 years, if you want to say that. I would put in everything I did from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed, pouring into people, learning, growing, because I learned that if I would help them succeed more, I would succeed. And then they would end up quitting on me 2 weeks later. And so for me, it was just, I felt like I was babysitting people. And in that time, I felt like just a failure. I gave 5 years of my life. I was maybe making a couple grand max a month. And it was like, I didn't hit my goal. But what that did do is it actually, those 5 years was me laying the groundwork to open the door to becoming a professional coach, which opened the door to me meet my wife, to open the door for me to get into real estate investing, and to now us being able to live financially free and give back and make an impact. So while the financial side was a failure, it actually was the breeding ground, the launching pad for me to have the life that I want today. So if you're listening and you feel like you're spinning your wheels, you're not going anywhere, it's like, hold on, there's something greater coming. Keep putting the effort in, keep being excellent. There is a time where you do need to pivot and make that hard decision. And I think for me, honestly, in network marketing, I had so many successful mentors. And I remember, this is a great story. I remember I was so defeated. And I went to my mentor who's made hundreds of millions in network marketing. We started talking and he asked me this question that literally changed my life. And it was this. He goes, Joe, why are you so busy holding on to a life you don't even want? And it was like the rockets were going off. I ran home. I wrote it on my whiteboard. I started meditating on it. I'm like, I love the people. I love what we're doing, but it's ran its course. I need to move on from network marketing. And ironically, I had to say to that mentor, thank you, but I no longer need you in my life. I'm going a different direction. And literally, I'm not joking. Yes, I got into coaching and it took a little bit of time for me to ramp up, build my skill set, confidence, but my life went like this. Here's my key. It's not leave your mentors. It's just, there is a season where you need to graduate. I call it a graduation model, right? I had to graduate to the next level, which was believing in me and not leaning on my mentors and thinking that they're going to give me the success that I'm looking for. I had to take personal responsibility.
Dude, I absolutely love what you just said. I was thinking back to different times in my life where I had been, like, I got pitched on Amway, but it was Quick Star at the time. It was kind of more the e-commerce model and all that. I didn't even know what I was walking into. And then I also sold, like I was in financial planning, but I mean, if we're completely honest, it was life insurance sales. And I did that too. Like, yeah, I've had other friends who sold like really tough things like water. My wife sold water for 15 years. It's like you're selling air to people. You know what I mean? It's like you go through really rigorous sales training programs and they get you thick skin. And you can use that as a stepping stone into other, you know, higher and better uses of your time. But I'm not disparaging Amway. Like everybody makes a joke out of them. But network marketing, that is a very, very tough business to stay in for a long time. Yeah. So, yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's a good story.
It reminds me of like literally my time doing Omaha Nightlife, which was an online website. I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this thing, and I'm gonna make so much money because we're gonna sell this. And I poured my life and my soul into it. And I left college with 12 credits left to finish, and I'm like, I didn't make shit from that, but I made great connections, and because I wouldn't be sitting here right now if it wasn't for it. I regret all of it, but I don't regret all of it.
Do you think, Ted, that you would get any satisfaction about finishing your degree?
Yes.
Why don't you do it?
Right now, honestly, it's a time thing. So it was like a year of college. What benefit is it going to have besides just, telling my kids that I finished it?
What do you think about that?
I think college is for suckers. No, I'm just playing. I got my master's. Look, here's a fun fact about me. I got my master's because the Marine Corps paid me to go to school. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. Look, finish your degree. If you want to check that box to say you've done it, awesome. I'm neutral. I don't think you need school to be successful. Now, if you're looking to be a doctor or something, yes. If you're going to do brain surgery on someone or touch my kid with a scalpel, I want you to be the best. I want you to be a valedictorian in school. But look, I gave thought to get my PhD just to say I have a PhD. I have a Dr. Joe, or whatever. But we'll see if that ever comes to fruition.
Yeah.
I always just said my wife's got 2 master's degrees, so she could just share one with me.
There you go.
There you go. Oh, that's great. Well, we have one last section, Joe, that we cover with every guest, and it's called the
OT with Owen and Ted.
You're going to get OT with Owen and Ted, presented by Magic Door,
Magic Door is the AI-powered property management platform designed to handle everything from the rent cycle to the vacancy and maintenance cycles. During the rent cycle, Magic Door collects rent, sends automatic reminders, deducts management fees, and distributes payments to owners. In the vacancy cycle, Magic Door streamlines listings, tenant applications, seamless multi-language communication, screening tenants, and converting applications into leases with one click. And for the maintenance cycle, Magic Door's AI handles everything, asking tenants key questions, assigning tasks to vendors, and scheduling repairs automatically without you getting involved. With no hidden fees, no onboarding costs, and seamless AI-powered automation, Magic Door takes care of the entire property management lifecycle so you can focus on what matters most.
And we've got some questions for you that we ask every guest. First one is...
Isn't it amazing how people laugh when we do our...
Yeah, I know. First question for you, Joe. If you were going to write a book or have written a book, what topic would it cover and what would the title be?
Such a great question. I did co-author in a book that became a bestseller called Defining Moments of Courage. It's really my story around the Marine Corps and getting out. I do have plans eventually to write a book to really help people live life by design, consciously live the life they want instead of, running to a 9-to-5 or operating your small business. We want to help people become financially free. So financial freedom isn't the end goal. It's the starting point. Get money out of the way so you can focus on the things that truly matter and going out and making an impact to your community and the loved ones. That's my message, and that's what I want to get out to people. And using avenues like small business or business, buying or selling, real estate. Those are some of the big avenues for people to do that quickly. And so it's going to be a book about designing your life and financial freedom and doing that.
Love it.
Okay, so if you're tuning in via YouTube or Rumble, you're gonna see Joe, and you can see this badass studio and his $700 microphone he can't use. But with that being said, Joe, it is your podcast, or this podcast is your podcast. Whatever you want to look at it. You can interview anyone in the world today, not necessarily real estate, related. You can pick anybody in the world today to talk to. That's preferably live. Who's it gonna be, and what's the one question you want to ask?
You said dead or alive?
No, preferably alive.
Okay. All right. If it was someone, well, I guess I could say this. I would interview Jesus, but for someone that's living, on the earth right now.
Jesus has come up so many times.
I would say Michael Jordan. And the reason why is because of his mentality, the way he thinks, the way he's competitive. This is one of the biggest keys for me. And if you have a company, it should be a value, I believe, in every company. His excellence in everything he does. I would want to understand, how does he think about those things to have that mentality? Because you can carry that into business and life everywhere. Your life can change. So I'd say MJ.
Okay. And what would you ask the big J?
His mentality. Like, how does he think about excellence? How does he think about his work ethic? Like, what is it about? What makes him tick like that? Because
I said the big J because of Jesus.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, you mentioned Jesus. So what's the one thing you're going to ask? You felt like you had somewhere you were and I cut you off.
Oh, my fault. No.
I didn't want to.
Well, I mean, outside of like all the unknowns that we have, if I had to get real specific, is like, how do you love everyone, even those that hate you? We talked about haters earlier, and I talked about having compassion with them, but it's easy to say, it's another thing to do. Like, I want to know, like, how can I do that? And I guess there is a lot of forgiveness work that I still could do, but I'd really want to know more in depth, how he looks at us and loves us.
Yeah, like Karens that always want to speak to the manager. Like, that is, I mean, you got to give special props to the big J, man, for just loving all of them too, because
he loves them all. He wants them all.
Handle. Okay, it's the end of the road for Joe. And we got somebody walking up to the lectern. Is it a lectern? Podium? That thing at the front of the church where people talk in front of when they're given a memorial for someone. Who's going to be speaking at your eulogy? And what do you think they're going to say?
Well, let me answer the second question. First, I hope they say, look, he's moving. So, but
nobody's ever said that.
It's like, yeah. But no, if I had to pick, I hope it's my boys, and I hope my two kids, my sons, and that they honor me for the way I love them, the way that I taught them and raised them, and everything I've poured into them. I've been very intentional. Since they were each born, their names have specific meanings. Every morning I tell them I haven't missed a day in 6 years, and then 4 years for my youngest, that I don't say I love you and that you're more than enough. Because Tony Robbins talks about your 2 deepest fears are that you're not enough, and if you're not enough, you won't be loved. So I tell them every day to fill that cup. And even on our wall, we put it says, you are more than enough. When people walk in our house, they see that. So we want to unconsciously start programming their mind. So we're very intentional. But that's what I hope they say about me. And then they take it and carry it out and live life to the fullest. And that's the best way to honor someone, to actually act on what they give you.
If you could pick one celebrity to go up there and speak on your behalf, who would it be?
One celebrity? Man, that's a tough one. I would probably pick Denzel Washington. Like, I think I would pick him. Yeah, he's just he's a gangster.
I can see the resemblance.
I can see the resemblance.
What's that?
I said I can see the resemblance.
It's my turn. Give my questions.
Well, you're hijacking this.
No, I'm not.
Thing.
Okay.
We get it. He's your coach.
Okay, Joe, I want you to think back to the person that was the biggest mentor in your life or in your business. And right now you were speaking directly to them, and you can say thank you to them for who they are and what they did for you. You're not speaking to us. You're not speaking to the people listening. What do you want to say to them, and who is it?
You know, ironically, I've already had this conversation with them. It's one of my best friends who actually got me started in Amway. And we both moved on, but we're best friends. We went to both the Eagles Super Bowls together, almost went to this one together. But I've told
the Chiefs.
Vikings.
Yeah. But I told him, thank you. He introduced me. He's the one who got me saved at an Amway conference in Las Vegas, which was awesome. So thank you for my salvation. Thank you for showing me leadership, healthy and unhealthy ways, right? Because the contrast is so important to have in life. Not everything bad is actually bad. It's our perception of it, but it's actually a learning lesson. And just thank you for having a brother that I did life with, created many fun memories that I can't talk about in public, and then memories that we had open with everyone, but just the brotherhood, right? The brotherhood of doing life together, because at the end of your time, you're going to look back. It's not going to be the money, the houses, the properties, the stuff that you have that you're going to kind of revisit in your mind or talk about. You're going to talk about the times with the loved ones and your friends that are most important. So I would just say thank you for all the memories. And I'll give this last plug. He's such a good friend that if anything happened to me and my wife, him and his wife would raise our kids and vice versa. And that's already been established. So it would be thank you for everything.
That's deep. Oh, and I hope that one day you and I have stories that we can share.
I think we already have a number of stories we can't share with anyone else.
Okay, good.
There you go.
I hope we continue those stories.
Are you looking for anything in your business or life right now that somebody catching this episode might be able to connect the dots for you?
We're always looking to take on clients, and we have coaches that we coached that work for us. And so, if anyone's ever interested in coaching, yes. My wife and I were in the process of launching our podcast, and we're going to create a mastermind for our community for people to live life on their terms, right? Life by design, creating financial freedom. So anyone that's interested in something like that, we are going to eventually buy businesses. So always looking for partners and capital and real estate deals. Capital and deals are always something we're open to. But our whole mission around what we're building is we want to help. It's going to be called Master Life by Design, Families for Financial Freedoms, a mastermind. And we just want to do life with cool people around the world. We just got back from Maui for a week, and we actually extended another day just because we had a rainy day. And we brought some of our best friends with us, and they haven't been there in over like a decade. And it's like so cool to be able to do life with them and have them come with us. And we just want to do that with cool people around the world. So yeah.
I have to ask, were you connecting with Brandon Turner while you were out there?
I texted him, but with a newborn, he was just so slammed, tired, and responsibilities. So, but I got to go to church with Cam and meet Cam. And so I connected with him, and one of my other clients that was actually out there for 3 weeks connected with him. So it was a good time.
Hey, first off, great podcast. Thank you so much for all the insight you brought on. The last question I have for you is, you see how we are, you see how we act.
Yeah.
You probably got a better feel for myself. You got to know Owen in a deeper state. But with that, is there a person that you think would be great to be on this podcast that you could recommend to us that we could connect with?
Yeah. He was one of my clients for quite a few years, and his name's Ben Call. He's an incredible guy. He's in our GoBundance Mastermind. I think he owns over 50 million in self-storage and apartment complexes and everything. And he's out in Minnesota, but he travels the world. He's financially free.
He might be a Viking fan too.
I think he is, actually. He went to, I think it's Ball State or Kent State, or I don't know. He played fullback for college football. Heart of gold. He spoke at the masterminds with me, and he speaks all over the world. So he's kind of like Owen and like a behind the scenes guy, but he will step on the scene and he will deliver a lot of value. So he's a stud.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Well, with that, Owen Dashner, will you see us out?
On behalf of REIA Radio, Aiden Bear and Ted Kosh, I'm Owen Dashner, and you've been listening to Joe Unpack Your Baggage Moffett. Signing off. On behalf of REIA Radio, Aiden Bear and Ted Kosh, I'm Owen Dashner, and you've been listening to... Oh, God, where'd my notes at? On behalf of REIA Radio, Ted Kosh and Ed... On behalf of REIA Radio, Ted Kosh and Aiden Bear, I'm Owen Dashner, and you've been listening to Joe. Co-living is the new house hack. Not swinging. I'm Owen Dashner, and you've been listening to Joe, MJ over Jesus, Moffett. Signing off.
I like that.
No?
One. I like that one.
I would pick Jesus over MJ, but yeah.
That was a fun one.
Couldn't resist.